anything to, you know.
Don't touch titanium. We'll be good. Awesome.
Good morning, Rose. Sorry, I saw you join on there.
Oh,
Good morning.
good morning.
Good morning, Doc. It's nice to put a face with a name, Dr. Carroll.
Yes, nice to see you as well. I'm just getting to know people on campus this year.
Yes. Well, welcome to our WellCats educational series.
Thank you. Happy to be here. And Taryn Hollander is one of our pre-doctoral interns. She's going to be presenting with me. So.
Oh, great. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to do this. We're so excited to hear. We're so excited to hear all the wonderful information. It's perfect because it's May Mental Health Month. So
yes, it's also a good time of the semester with stress to be like taking a breather and looking at things and doing a little self-assessment.
And if y'all want to queue up the presentation, we've got about 5 people in the waiting room, so we can have them start to trickle in if you're ready.
Okay, so let me get to the slideshow. Okay. Get back.
When they all get in, I'll just give like a little brief intro and then hand it off to y'all.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Great. Is that kind of working?
Yes.
Awesome. So everyone can see that?
Yes. Do you, real quick, if you'll switch your display setting. Right now we see, I can't think of the word. We see like presenter side right now.
Okay, how do I do that? Display settings?
If you will just hit, yes, if you'll swap presenter there, perfect.
That, so, okay, great. I'm learning things.
I never knew how to do that either. So.
Well, I was like, look there, because normally I have to go out of it to get to that screen. So do you have 2 monitors?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So like, this is what you guys are seeing, and this is what I'm seeing. So I'm oriented now.
Okay, cool. You okay if I start to let them in?
Oh, absolutely. Good morning.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the WellCats educational series. Today, my name is Josh Arguelles. I'm in human resources, and I want to take just a little bit here to talk about the WellCats program. For those of you here on campus with us, whether you're in Round Rock or in San Marcos, the WellCats program is your employee wellness program here at the university. It's absolutely free for all staff and faculty in your benefits eligible positions. All we need you to do is to register online. Everything's online now, so the process takes about 5 to 10 minutes based on whether how good you know all your information that we'll need. Once you finish the registration process, you'll get a confirmation email as well as a registration ID number. When we have you in the system, it's for attendance. And so when you're logged in, you can go to classes, check in, sign in, your attendance will be logged. We can keep track that way. And you can go to any of the classes that we have for our group exercise classes, which include kickboxing, boot camp classes, yoga classes, different stretching classes, Zumba class, if you like to do that stuff. We've got a weightlifting class. I will say that the current semester is coming to a close in the next week. So if you're going to register between now and then, do it quick, get it done fast. You can get in and check those out. But our summer schedule will be coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that. You can do that by looking up WellCats, the Texas State homepage in the search bar. It's going to be the first link that pops up. WellCats also offers the WellCats education series like you hear today. You do not need to be a registered WellCats member to attend those classes. You just need to get onto the ODC website and check out the calendar there. And we also have one-on-one services, including our health behavior change coaching, which will pair you up with a licensed health and wellness coach to go through some, life's challenges, things like that. If you're having a little bit of troubles here and there, they can help you out. We also have proactive nutrition classes, which are our in-person cooking classes held in the Family Consumer Sciences building in their food labs. They have a bunch of new and exciting recipes, healthy takes on popular dishes. There's no cleanup and there's no prep involved, so you can go in there, cook, eat, and leave. So if you've ever wanted to dine and dash, that would be your time. You can check those out, the dates and the times for those through the WellCats website as well. They also have one-on-one nutrition consultations. If you contact Human Resources, more specifically WorkLife, we can get you set up in a one-on-one consultation with the nutritionists that we have on staff. So keep WellCats in mind for some on-campus resources. We also partner with the Student Rec Center, and currently there's a subsidy available for WellCats members for a semester. So it's $25 off the initial price of membership. If you want more information on that, please send me an email, worklife@txstate.edu. And that's it for me. I will pass it over to Dr. Claudia Carroll and Taryn Hollander today.
Great, thank you. My name's Claudia Carroll. I'm one of the staff psychologists at Texas State Counseling Center. I'm behind the PowerPoint, so I don't think you can see me, but I will at the end of this make sure to show my face so you can put a face to a name. And I'm co-presenting today with.
Hi, Claudia, we can see you, just so you know.
Great.
Yeah. My name is Taryn Hollander, and I'm one of the doctoral interns. There's 3 of us at the Counseling Center this year. So we've been here since August. And Claudia and I are going to be talking to you today about addressing your mental health. And we are comfortable with y'all jumping in with questions. If you have questions, you can send them through the chat. You can just unmute yourself. I'm hoping that it feels, kind of casual and conversational, and we'll also ask y'all to participate on some of the slides and kind of brainstorm together. Did you want to share anything else, Claudia, before we hop in?
No, just, if you have questions, put it in the chat. If it's something you don't want to personally identify, if you want to send it directly to Taryn or myself, we won't name who sent the question if you have that question. And I'm imagining everyone came for a reason, so they signed up for this for a reason. So if there are specific things you want us to kind of hone in on or look at that are the reasons why you came here, please let us know so that we can tailor some of the things towards your needs, since you guys are showing up right at the end of the semester, and we appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the first slide.
Okay. I was just going to say, and we know it's Friday morning, so so everyone's still maybe waking up. So the first thing we want to talk about is just get on the same page about what is mental health. And so I'm just curious if anyone feels comfortable sharing or sending through in the chat, like, what does mental health mean to you, or what comes up in your mind when you hear the words mental health? Try to maximize the gallery so I can see who's all here. Okay, well, I can go ahead and give us the definition from the American Psychological. Oh, there's got something. Being able to handle emotions. That's a good one. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Feeling stable. Yeah. That makes me think of like a boat when you're on the waves and you're kind of dealing with different stuff, but feeling like you can be steady through it. Also, the APA definition, which is the American Psychological Association, being able to handle stress. That's a good one too. Yeah, I think all 3 of those are probably reflected in this definition too, which is APA defines mental health as a state of mind characterized by emotional well-being, good behavioral adjustment, relative freedom from anxiety and disabling symptoms, and a capacity to establish constructive relationships and cope with the ordinary demands and stresses of life. So that really encompasses a lot, quite a few functions. And they talk about, as some of you suggested, emotions, behaviors, the symptoms you might experience, also our relationships and how we function in relationships, and then also being stable, like you said, coping with those demands and stressors of life that we all face. Is anyone surprised by anything in that definition, or want to share anything before we move on to the next slide? It's hard when I can't see y'all, so just unmute yourself and shout out, or we'll move on.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Switch that so we can talk. Sure.
So sometimes when I think about mental health, I like to use this metaphor of thinking about a battery. So we all have so much energy, psychic energy. And so thinking about what are the things that can drain your battery? And then also what are the things that can charge your battery? And I wonder if anyone feels comfortable sharing, like, what are some of the things that might drain your battery or impact your mental health negatively? Work, oh, both drains and charges my batteries. I think that's a really important point, that some things that we find invigorating can also be tough. Stress and anxiety as something that drains, yeah, for sure. When I think about stress and anxiety too, something that comes to mind for me is that it can often be external. So it can be things that are happening to us, but it can also be internal, like things we're worried about that might be happening. Aches and pains, yeah, physical symptoms for sure can feel draining. Yeah. Emotionally draining people in your life, that's another great one. Yeah, relationships can be hard. They can also be a source of support for some of us for recharging our battery. I'll just give it a few more seconds to see if anything else pops up on the chat. But I think what's important, and worries about others. Yeah, worries about others.
I keep thinking of trauma and loss. And I keep thinking in the last couple of years that what we've been dealing with a pandemic, that there's multiple levels of loss and readjustment of our lives and everything that's happened that could just sort of chip away at our mental health. It can certainly be one big thing, but it can be a lot of little things that just sort of add up and build up that stress and those challenges for us. So that's what came to mind for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Claudia. And that made me think too about uncertainty. I think uncertainty is one we hear a lot from clients as being something that's really hard to handle. And certainly the pandemic, made us all kind of uncertain about the future. Interacting with others can be draining, having to be on and needing to take a break afterwards. Absolutely, that's a good one. And I think in some of these answers that y'all are sharing with us, they're all different. And so what charges our battery or what drains our battery can be really personal, and it can be situational, like we said, external, but it can also be internal. And so part, I think, of understanding our own mental health is understanding what drains us, might be different from what drains someone else, or what we find energizing or nourishing, what those things might be. It could be different from someone else. So that's something I hope that we can keep in mind as we continue to talk about mental health, is that it's really personal. Okay. I'm going to move to the next slide, Claudia.
All right.
Thank you.
So this is kind of going off of what Taryn was saying, that it's important to kind of know what's happening for us. We're all so different, that a good self-analysis and a good awareness of the ways that we struggle or the things that bring us energy is really important, because what's happening with me is going to be very different from what's happening with Taryn at any point in time. And so part of what we're going to do in this slide is talk about, how do I know if I'm struggling with mental health? And one thing I wanted to say just about mental health is it presents in so many variety of ways and so many different symptoms that it is important to kind of look at what's personal. So I think of depression, and we all kind of have an image maybe in our head of what depression looks like or what it might feel like. But if you look at sort of kind of the symptoms or the presentation of depression, it all can be very different. Someone can be struggling with mood and a lot of physical symptoms, while another person who is also depressed has maybe more cognitive symptoms or more kind of thought things happening. So knowing how you function is really important. So the first one is, how do I know if I'm struggling? I put behavioral signs. So this kind of wraps back to that definition that Taryn gave about what is mental health. So behavioral functioning. For me, I know that my first sign that maybe my stress levels are high or my mental health is not the greatest is sleep. My sleep gets really disrupted. I start to get insomnia. And so I know that that's an early signal for me that something's going on. For you, what are some like things that you notice in your behaviors or in your body that might give you a signal that you're struggling? If anyone has thoughts. What about eating? For some people, appetite increases. Some people, it completely goes away. That's certainly a sign. Any other ones that people know? Sometimes headaches and other things, chronic pains, illnesses, those kind of things. I know when sort of most of us are struggling, we're more susceptible to illness. Right. Kind of so becoming really mopey and less talkative. So really withdrawing in. Yeah, just like my behavior is, I'm not how I normally am. I'm not as social. I'm not as connected. That's a really great point. Isolate and disengage with others. Yeah. It does show up a lot in our relationships and sort of seeing how we are with our friends, how we are at work. That's a good sign. And that's also a good way that our friends can help us understand and notice things might be going on, even if we don't. So if my friend tells me that I've been really quiet or I haven't been talking with them, it gives me a thought to think about, how am I really doing? Is something really going on? Those are great. So I know I flipped ahead of here because I'm not really good at the Zoom thing. So the second category that I had were cognitive signs. And that's just really our thought processes. So if we think of things like depression and anxiety, we think of some of maybe the thoughts that go with them, worries about things, thoughts that are racing that we can't grab a hold of. And then as psychologists, we think of like the word is called distortions, and it's kind of a harsh word, but it's ways that our thoughts get skewed in a way that causes us distress. So I think of distortions like catastrophizing as one of those. So like if one thing happens, it feels like it's the end of the world. It feels like everything's going to fall apart and nothing's going to be okay. So it's going to be a catastrophe. And we might find that if we're struggling with our mental health, our thoughts go in that direction, or our thoughts go into what's called personalization, like everything feels like it's reflective on us. Worry that we can't get a hold of or that we can't stop. Those are some of the things. Slow down thoughts. Anything that people have noticed in their thought patterns that would be a signal for them that maybe my mental health is struggling. If you want to unmute or put in the chat if you notice things.
And Claudia, I just wanted to jump in that I got a message for behavioral signs about those physical symptoms. And that's how I experience my anxiety too, which is kind of tightness in the chest and rapid heart rate. And then that can also, leading into the cognitive signs, include racing thoughts too. So that's another one.
Yeah, any thought patterns people notice? Those are hard ones sometimes to identify. But if we get to know each other, we can start to see when that gets a little shifted in another way. And then I'm putting these things as separate things, but we are one integrated entity as a human being. So they're not distinct and separate. So what's happening behaviorally for you is going to impact how you're thinking, how you're feeling emotionally. So I want to make sure to put that out there. Okay. Great. Yeah, more pessimistic when normally glass half full. That's a good one. Yeah, when everything starts to feel like, oh, this is not going to work out, and that's just not our temperament. Things that differ from our temperament is a good sign. Yeah, that's a great one. Sometimes a lot of people will feel like, especially with depression, like a really slowed down thought process, like, not feeling able to like really grab thoughts, feeling like everything's a lot harder to like get work done or to address things. So I think that's one that you want to be aware of. Okay. I'm going to move to the emotional signs, and again, not distinct, but part of us. So when we think of mental health and how do you know if you're struggling, what emotional signs do you think you notice in yourself?
I'm just gonna jump in there with irritability.
Yeah.
I think that's one that I hear a lot, or like, and then I recognize, like, if I start, little things start feeling frustrating, then it's like, what's going on there?
Yeah, that increase in irritability. Yes, irritability.
Irritability.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, sadness. Like feeling sad about a lot of things. I know for me, like my body responds to things with tearing up. So I tear up a lot. I call myself kind of a leaker. Tears I can't really explain. If I start feeling like it's happening in a lot of places, then that gives me a question to say, oh, what's happening? If it's just really happening across the board and not related to a specific stressor. So yeah, tears I can't really explain. Numbing is one, like feeling nothing. Like I'm usually good at my feelings. I'm good at kind of dealing with people, and then I can't feel anything. Non-sympathetic. So just feeling like I just don't have anything to give to anyone else. Any other emotional signs? I think these are great ones, and I'm glad to see the differences, because it really highlights that we're different creatures. Mad. That's definitely one. Yeah, so if we know ourselves and how we are emotionally, and we start to see changes, that's a sign that maybe I'm struggling. And then the last category of this is kind of what you guys mentioned at the beginning, is social signs. You know, as human beings, we're social creatures in varying degrees. Some of us, are more extroverted, some more introverted, but we all have social relationships or connections to other human beings. And if we see some of those things shifting in ways that are not congruent with who we are, those might be some signs. So I think you guys already sort of said, like withdrawing, not being connected to people, maybe being irritable and non-sympathetic with others, withdrawing. Sometimes people will see an excessive socialization, like because they're not feeling so good, that they're really trying to start to feel good by connecting to other people. So I've seen that before, where it's sort of a hyper socialization. It's like, I can't be left alone. I need to be around other people. And that might be a sign for some people. Any things that you guys have noticed other than what we mentioned in that social area? Second. Okay. So I think these are the categories. These 4 categories are things that, as you're thinking about how you're doing, your mental health, your stress levels, check in all these domains with yourself, get to know yourself and what your baseline is, but also what is different than how you know yourself, what is constituting a problem. I like Taryn's boat analogy, like bobbing like that, because when we think of trying to get a mental balance or emotional balance, it's not a static thing, because we're not, as humans, we have stuff going on inside. We had stuff going on externally. So it's going to move. We just want to keep like the amplitude of it in a smaller range. So it's not like super high, super low lows, but stuff that we can deal with that may just kind of go back and forth as we experience stressors. So we're just going to try to manage that boat. All right, let's switch right here. Is it going? Yeah, so this is the piece I was talking about, like the self as a system, and this is just a nice way of sort of thinking of it. There's a sort of triangles inside a circle here, but I think of these things as all related. Our thoughts affect and this is affect over this side, which is more emotion, that's kind of the psychologist sort of term for it. So our thoughts affects our feelings affect our behaviors affect our thoughts. Behaviors then can go back the other way and affect our feelings can affect our thoughts. So we are really an integrated system. So what's happening in one domain of us can really impact those other domains. And so that's why self-awareness about what is normal for us, what feels good for us, is really important, so we can start to see if things get out of balance or if things are being impacted negatively. So I encourage check-ins kind of on the daily, like, how am I doing? So there's a morning check-in, like how am I doing as I'm starting the day? And also maybe throughout the day or in the evening, how am I dealing with the stressors that are happening? Am I finding some problems in my behaviors, my emotions, my thoughts, my relationships? We'll present that.
I like that idea of check-ins, Claudia, and it made me think of this thing that sometimes you might hear therapists say, which is like name it to tame it. So like sometimes when you check in with yourself, you're like, oh, I'm feeling angry. And then once you recognize it, then you're able to cope in a different way than if you didn't name it and check in about it. And so I think that's something I remember, like name it to tame it.
Exactly.
So now on this slide, we're thinking about what are ways that you can improve your mental health. And so going back to that battery analogy, like what are some of the things that nourish you or recharge your battery or help you feel good when you notice maybe that you're struggling either behaviorally or socially or emotionally, or that you're having some more negative thoughts? Does anyone want to share? What are some things you notice? Okay, better diet, exercise, and meditate. Those are all good ones.
I'll share. I didn't want to type all this because I'm a moderately fast typer, but some things that I've been doing lately, I recently started doing like hot yoga, which has been amazing. And then as far as work goes, I was the person who said that work drains me and charges me. So whenever I'm more towards the draining part of my work week, I kind of go back to the things that charge me, which is the socializing aspect. I work in Slack, so just going out and talking to all the tutors and, just hearing about their days and, what med schools they're applied for and stuff like that really helps me out. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing. I got to try hot yoga.
It's so good. I definitely recommend it.
And then I see someone wrote in the chat to talk with someone, which is getting at, Jade, kind of what you were sharing, that for some people, socializing can help you feel more connected and feel better. Whereas for other people, as we recognized earlier, that can also be a drain. So getting at that kind of personal nature. Does anyone have anything else? Oh, trying to right size the situation instead of catastrophizing that. I really like that one because it can be easy to kind of start thinking like, oh, one thing's gone wrong, that means everything's going wrong, and go down that rabbit hole and sort of end up feeling worse. And so trying to right size the situation. So just think about it like kind of realistically.
That's a great term, right size. It's something we
like
can all keep in our heads. Like, what's the size of this? What's the scope of my reaction?
I really like that. Tackle things one at a time. Yes, I love that one because sometimes things can feel so overwhelming, right? And when you think about all of it, you can almost feel paralyzed, like all the things I need to do. So just to focus on one small piece at a time feels much more manageable or like a realistic goal. Yeah.
I would say have fun, like add fun to your life. So make sure we laugh, make sure we have like connections to hobbies of any kind. So if we're a reader, we have at least a little bit of time to read. If we're a gardener, at least a little bit of time in the dirt, all of those kind of things. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but we need that balance. We can't be all work and we can't be all stress and we can't be all these other things without having a balance of fun and relaxation. That's important to us as humans.
That's a really good point, Claudia. And then I think one thing that comes up a lot of the time when we talk about mental health is self-care. And so we can move to the next slide. And then I want to share with you all this concept of boring self-care. So there was a time in my life when I was feeling really overwhelmed when I had little kids and I'm doing my doctorate and I was doing clinical work, and people were always talking about self-care and how important it was. And I just felt mad at this whole concept of self-care. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, I wish I could, but I don't have time to do hot yoga. Maybe there were financial constraints. I wanted to go get a massage, but I didn't have time for that either. Like, who's going to watch my kids? And so it really felt like self-care was another burden almost added to my list of stressors. And so I had this colleague and good friend who shared with me the art of this person. You can follow her on Instagram. It's at Making Daisy Chains. And she just does these little illustrations about boring self-care, which self-care can be just as simple as breathing, remembering to breathe. It can look like brushing your teeth. It can look like picking a shirt that you like in the morning that feels good. And so just kind of reframing and thinking about and checking in with myself about all the ways that I was taking care of myself helped me feel better, rather than thinking about all the ways that I wasn't engaging in self-care and the idea that I thought it should look like. And so I'm just curious if anyone has any reactions to this idea of boring self-care. If that's something you're like, oh, that resonates with me, or no.
I like it. Changing my sheets is always really nice. And I never thought about it as self-care. I thought of it more as like a chore. But it's nice afterwards. So I like this.
Yeah, it's always nice to sleep in clean sheets. I agree. Go for a walk. Yes. I think being outside is something, and the research shows that really can help us feel connected to ourselves and improve mental health. Absolutely.
And even if it's a walk just around the block, because I think sometimes we also get these things, I need to take a walk, or I need to do this thing. It has to be this extensive self-care ritual. No, it just has to be a little something to break up what's happening and to give back to ourselves.
Just, instead of like that full charge on the battery, it can be like these little blips throughout the day to keep that charge up. Starting a new book, I like that one too. That's a good feeling. Counting up the small victories because they add up. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be all or nothing with the taking care of yourself. We can do it in little ways throughout the day.
When I think of thinking of it as a daily thing is really important, because I know a lot of people, especially when we get in really stressful work, or we get in the middle of a semester and it's, it's got its own rhythms where it gets really stressful, we're like waiting. So we wait to take care of ourselves until the end of the semester, or we wait until vacation to be kind to ourselves and get more sleep and eat well. And so I think the importance of, even in the really stressful times, we need to check in and do at least a little something for ourselves so it doesn't build up over time where we end up kind of collapsing at the end of a semester. Seeing that a lot with students, that after finals, all of them like collapse and sleep for a couple of days and then get sick because they haven't necessarily been taking care of themselves throughout the finals week.
That's so true. Okay.
We good?
Yep, we're good. Should we move on?
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna move on to kind of just some things that you can do, just some interventions that we tend to use with some of our clients. And so we'll start with some mindfulness things. So I like this picture. I'm a dog person, so I've got a couple dogs, and I do swear my dogs have they're just happier than I am, because they focus on like food, sleep, cuddles, barking. That's about it. So they have a singular thing. They're focused on their person. They're focused on what's happening in the moment, because that's, if you see that, that's the present picture right there. That's these people. And then there's the human thinking about like, oh, I want to go on vacation. I got to buy a house. There's stuff I have to do. I've got financial things. What about my car? And the multi-focus that we have as humans sometimes can make us less happy. So I think that someone to put here doing one thing at a time is super important. Focusing on one thing at a time is really helpful to our happiness. So I just love this little dog. So we're kind of looking at three different things that we talk about in as therapists and psychologists: mindfulness, meditation, and grounding. So someone definitely mentioned meditation, and I'll kind of look at that first. So that's learning how to peacefully exist with one's thoughts and feelings in the present moment without judgment. So if you've ever done one of those apps like Calm or Headspace, where they kind of talk you through being with your breath or being in the moment, that's a form of meditation. Some people do it for a really long time. Some people do like 2 minutes in the morning or 2 minutes throughout the day. And that's just getting into existence with what's happening now and not judging it, because we have a tendency to be mostly critical of things that are going on for us in the moment, wishing that they would change. We're not trying to escape thoughts or feelings, and it enhances our ability to regulate difficult emotions. So that's a good tool to add to your repertoire if you could, so you could just start to manage your emotions. Grounding, which we'll talk about later, is connecting oneself to the outside world in the present moment. So you see the difference is looking inward and kind of looking at your thoughts and feelings with meditation. Grounding is looking outward. And that's important when we start to feel like we get lost sometimes in our thoughts or feelings, or we get really almost like we're not connected to the world. We're like sort of dissociated from things. Everything's a little fuzzy or blurry. We're not really present. So grounding are some things to get you connected and be back in the present moment. And then mindfulness is that inner experience connecting to self-awareness. So it's not just existing, but it's really kind of paying attention with intention. I really like this. So you're like looking at what's going on inside, you're having intention at trying to understand it without being critical. So it involves, I like this again, calm acceptance of one's thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. It might be stuff that we don't like that we find inside. This is true when we're stressed or when our mental health is struggling, but that's okay. We need to, like we said, name it to tame it. We need to be aware of it and pay attention to it with intention and not criticism in order to do something about it. I usually talk with the students that I work with about being curious versus critical when things come up that are difficult. So we have a tendency to be kind of mean to ourselves, like, why are you doing that? Shame on you. Why didn't you do this other thing? Versus being like, okay, you didn't get these things done, or you're really struggling. I wonder why. And being curious and trying to get some reflection about like what's happening. And I wonder why that's happening, because that might give you some insight as to what the next intervention is. Versus if you're critical, we're pretty much going to shut down and just kind of feel worse. So mindfulness is a key piece of kind of taking care of our mental health. This is a slide with a lot of words that's coming up next. So I'm only going to highlight a couple. But it's the reported benefits of mindfulness. So it's a ton of them. If you look at them, and all the things we're talking about with mental health are important. So, we think about relationships that are more positive, our ability to handle stress, to focus, to concentrate, to have more balance. Those are some immediate benefits of mindfulness. It really is a way of kind of checking in and learning to understand and work with ourselves. And then daily practice for this, 6 to 8 weeks. So like half a semester, if we think of that, like the part before spring break, it can give you these benefits. So improved empathy and then memory, improved emotional stability, decrease in anger, a reduction in anxiety, all this sort of the mental health warning signs or things we were talking about. So if you have kind of any tolerance for mindfulness and doing some of that work, those apps, Calm and Headspace, are really great. There's also some really great things on YouTube that don't have to last very long. They can be 5 minutes. And I think that's super important. Any questions about mindfulness in general before we sort of go into some exercises or some things? It's a lot of information.
I was just thinking, Claudia, when you were talking about that non-critical and that non-judgmental acceptance, I know that there are some people who struggle with that when they have like a really critical kind of inner monologue going on. Yeah. And so just thinking about self-compassion, and for some clients, I think thinking about how they would respond to a friend or a loved one going through the same thing, and then saying that to themselves can be a helpful way to start to practice that acceptance or that non-judgmental stance, which sometimes can be hard when we're used to kind of criticizing our experience.
Yeah, that's great. So compassion and curiosity, I think, are just great things that you can remember. Like if I can treat myself the way I would treat my best friend, my loved one, that would help. And we definitely don't do that. I know my inner world is saying things to me at times that I would not say to my best friend or to my loved one. And I have to, recalibrate what's going on in there at times. Okay. So the piece I'll talk about right now is mindful breath work. If we looked at that back of that boring self-care, one of those little quadrants that Taryn put up there was like taking a breath, like working, breathing and kind of calming ourselves. Our breath work is really important because it's something we have with us everywhere. So if we think of like coping skills and other kinds of things, there's some stuff we might have at home, like we might have our dog at home that we can pet and that helps us with anxiety or depression, or we might have something at work, but they might not be in all places that we are. So our breath and our lungs are things that we carry with us at all times. So we can always go back in to use those, use our lungs and use our oxygen, our breath to address what's going on. I'm just gonna, yeah. So never know what others are going through. I think that I'm just kind of going back there as a comment of just be aware of kind of what, you just never know if someone's struggling. So kindness towards others is important. I will say before I talk about the breath work, anything can be mindful. I've done exercises with people about mindful eating. So if we think about like having our lunch break at work, how many times do you actually sit there and taste what's going on? Like literally take the taste, understand what's happening with your food. Like, is this sweet? Is it sour? Is it bitter? Feeling how it feels in your stomach. Am I full? Am I not? Just paying real kind of conscious attention. That can be mindful. Doing the dishes can be mindful. It's a chore I think that we don't always like, but we can like smell the soap. We can feel like the warmth of the water. We can feel like the scrubbing on the dishes and the rinsing and the cleanliness. And those are all things that are just they're going to happen no matter what when we wash dishes. So we might as well be mindful and enjoy that process. And so mindful breath work, here's some things you can do. You can imagine slowly blowing out a candle, or you can do that at home, not at the office. No candles at the office, but at home, when you blow just kind of low and slow, what happens to the flame? If you blow harder, what happens to the flame? And just kind of start to gauge the power of your breath with this exercise. You could picture yourself carefully blowing bubbles through a bubble wand. Those are really fun. So if you don't have those, I would suggest maybe getting some of those for like yourself, maybe for the office to blow some bubbles. I know the kids run with them and I do that too sometimes, but using your breath to kind of create that fun is mindful breath work. Using a pinwheel to start to look at your breath, how you can move in different directions or speeds. And then this piece is part of what we're going to talk about in terms of using our breath to calm down, like to work with anxiety or to get grounded. Resting your hands on your belly and inhale using your abdominal muscles. So for most of us, we obviously, if we're walking around on this earth, we're taking in oxygen, so we are breathing. So we're not stopping the breathing, but we're not really aware of how we're doing it. So most of us throughout the day, we're taking kind of shallow breaths. So we're kind of taking it from up here in our upper chest, our shoulders, taking a little bit in, going on, kind of doing with our day. And so we're getting what we need, but maybe not what would be most beneficial. So if you think of like the lungs and like how we're made as humans, the lungs go pretty far in your chest, in your torso. They take up a lot of space, but they're also blocked by the rib cage. So in terms of things going out, you can only go so far in taking in oxygen with your lungs because you're gonna be blocked by the ribs and the muscles. And up here, there's only a certain amount of space above the rib cage to take in oxygen. There's just only a little room. But if you think below the rib cage with your diaphragm, you could expand down and out and get a whole intake of oxygen and a whole big breath down and out and make that work for you so that you can calm yourself. So I think putting your hands on your belly and making sure that's the part of your body that moves when you're breathing slowly is important. And breath work is the thing that when people are having acute anxiety attacks, this is the first place we go as therapists and as people to intervene, is to work on the breath because it slows down your heart rate. It can lower your blood pressure. It can create a better sense of well-being. It can work on your nervous system to calm that down. It has a lot of really great tools. So the thing that we talk about in therapy is like there's something called square breathing. So if we think of it, we're making a square. So, and if we can imagine that with our breath, what we do, we'll just kind of say 4 seconds. That's a good thing. You would take in air for 4 seconds. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. You took it in. Kind of hold at the top for 4. So not breathing in, not breathing out for 4. And then breathe out for 4. Really slow exhale, and then hold at the bottom for 4 seconds. And so from that, you make that square. And if you do that 5, 10 times, you're going to notice a change in your body, and you're going to notice a change in like your heart rate, in your stress levels. So I'm wondering if you can have your cameras on or off. It doesn't matter, but if we could indulge in maybe doing a couple of these together, and then tell me how it feels afterwards. So I'm just going to kind of go through this maybe 4 times, and I'll talk it out as we take in those breaths. So we kind of just get relaxed and take in a breath for 4. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold again. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and one more slowly in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we did that 3 times. I'm just curious what people noticed maybe before or after or during that exercise. You want to put in the chat or unmute. Anyone notice any differences? Got sleepy? And calmer? Yeah. Yeah, got refocused on your breath. Yeah, so feeling calmer, feeling sleepy, slowing down the body, and then being able to focus on something else besides what's happening in your head. I think that's great. Anything else? Not sure if it was my voice or the breathing or both, but got sleepy, relaxed. Yes. I have a decent voice for that, but yes. Sleepy, relaxed. So just think of that. That was 3 breaths. That was it. That was only 3 breaths. And this is how it changed, just slightly, how we were feeling in terms of stress and feeling calmer and feeling maybe sleepy and feeling a greater sense of focus. So knowing that you have your breath with you, you've got this tool no matter what happens during the day. Any time of day, you can go back to this. If you're starting to feel your stress levels going up or something else happening, you can always go back to your breath and check in for a couple of seconds and do a couple of breaths, and you'll feel a difference. So I always like to know that I have that in my pocket as a coping strategy. I'll kind of move on to the next one just for Taryn. I know I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure we have time for questions.
Okay. Maybe I'll run through this one, but maybe we won't do it since the time's kind of going. So this is a grounding technique, which Claudia had explained is kind of connecting mindfully with the outside environment. Sometimes I know when we feel anxious and we're stressed out, we can get really in our own heads and start to feel really disconnected from the world around us. And sometimes breathing can help us feel connected to ourselves, but it can also be helpful to feel connected to the world and grounded in reality. And so this is a common grounding technique that you can use. And just like Claudia said, you can do it anywhere, right? Even in the grocery store, if you're feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated by the lights, you can just pause and kind of plant your feet on the floor and engage your senses. So all 5 of your senses. And so you might take some deep breaths and look around and name, you don't have to name it out loud. You can just name it in your head, or you can do it out loud. 5 things that you can see. So just to start to be aware of your immediate environment, what's around you. And then go to 4 things that you can touch. I really like the touching one. You can feel the different textures of maybe fabric that you're wearing, or the seat that you're in, the armrest. Just start feeling, your body basically. And then so maybe 3 things then that you can hear. Maybe it's a dog barking, the sound of the fan. 2 things that you can smell. That one can be hard sometimes. I've been having a hand sanitizer, which is also lavender smelling. So that's like an easy one now in the age of all of us having hand sanitizer all the time, something that you can smell and help you feel engaged with that sense of with that sense. And then one thing you can taste. And so going through that process can just help like orient you to the physical space that you're in and feel more grounded in yourself. Did you have anything to add with that one, Claudia? Or
those are great. Yeah, I think that's, again, it's portable. I always think of like, you know, things that are quick, things that are portable, and things that we have in our capacity to do to take care of ourselves and to check in is really important. Yeah. And I think that the next piece, which is really important, is reaching out for help. I always talk with students about it is easier to kind of get in and intervene with something going on that's difficult early than rather than later, till things have built up. So if you start to notice things about yourself, like maybe you start to see that you're feeling sad or depressed or having troubles with anxiety or other kinds of symptoms, go early to talk with someone, just because it's easier to get in there and to identify some interventions than if it's gone on for months and years. And that's unnecessary pain that you don't have to have, because we have those resources available for you. So on this, we've got some self-help resources, and then as well as some ways to get some other kinds of maybe medical or therapeutic help. So WellCats, y'all are here for WellCats and doing this. Great resources and videos available. It's a wonderful program. I've been at many universities that don't have this program for staff and faculty and employees. So I'm really appreciative of it. There's this thing called TAO, which is Therapy Assistance Online. And it's on our website for the counseling centers. And it is kind of obviously sort of looks like it's geared towards students, but it's free for everyone using your Texas State email. So since we all have that, you can register for this. And it has modules on like depression and anxiety and other kinds of mental things to help you learn more about that. In addition, we also have some more self-help resources. We've got some videos wellness videos that have been recorded over the last couple of years, some recommendations of apps, podcasts, all of those things. And then for getting more assistant, you've got Bobcat Balance that you can connect with and kind of get some assistance there. As employees, we have EAP programs. So we have some free sessions with a counselor to kind of address things that are going on. And then if it's something that's more ongoing or something, you know, like, I probably need to spend some time working on this, to seek out individual or group therapy in the community. If you have kind of health insurance, I know that health insurances can be challenging to navigate at times, but the best way I found to find things is to call the health insurance from the back. There's a behavioral health line usually, and ask them to email you a list of therapists in your community that are on your panel, so on Blue Cross Health Select. And then I like to cross-reference that with this website called Psychology Today. So if you go to psychologytoday.com, they have this function called Find a Therapist, and you could put in your location and a whole bunch of therapist profiles come up, and you can filter that by insurance, by specialization, by other kinds of characteristics of that therapist. And Psychology Today is one of the places that most therapists tend to advertise. So you'll be able to kind of match what's on your insurance with what they're saying there and find something that feels like a really good fit, because people describe their specialties and how they are in therapy, and it's a really good way to gauge how a therapist might be with you. Yeah, that is great. I like that comment. That's great. We have those resources available. Any questions about these or anything else that we didn't kind of address in the presentation that was important to you? I'm going to do this. Oh, good. You're welcome. Great overview. I'm going to stop the sharing. So now I know you can see me. Yeah, if you have any questions after this, feel free to contact us. You can find us on the Counseling Center webpage. If you'd like some information about other resources or just other things, we're happy to help out. So just give us a call or send us an email. so we can support you as fellow Bobcats.
It's a nice way to start our Friday morning with y'all. And thank you for your participation. So
Appreciate it. Yeah. I don't know if there's something that we do to wrap this up or not. This is my first one of these to do in the Wildcats. I see someone's coming to help me out.
I'm just gonna stop the recording real quick.
Thank you.